Hi, this is Tisch, Aitken, and it's Friday the 13th, but that's the least of our problems, and this is a very hard report to do today because we are in chaos. I don't need to tell you that. You don't need the astrology to tell you that. We have seen so much happen. The United States is in absolute chaos. There are reporters being detained. There is a senator getting arrested. There are cop cars being set on fire. There is rage and anger. There are a lot of accidents happening right now. There are a lot of explosions. We just had Air India, that awful fatal plane crash, and Israel attacked Iran, and that's just a few things. That's more on the world stage. What about in your own lives? I know in my own life I've seen, not directly for me, I feel very, very jittery right now, and I'm sure a lot of you do, given everything that's happening. And it's in the astrology, but it is a very scary time, and I think it's really crucial to stay grounded as much as you can. And it's not going to be easy. And we just had Jupiter, the luckiest planet, enter the cardinal water sign of Cancer on Monday, June 9th, and it loves being there. It's about comfort and security and family and doing things that make you feel good. Well, that is certainly not what it feels like right now, does it? And so we have Jupiter building up right after it ingressed into a new sign. Jupiter takes 12 years to orbit, and it's in a sign approximately for a year. This time it's going to be fully in a year. It's not going to dip into another sign like it sometimes does. In the last few years, it's in a sign, then it retrogrades back into the previous sign. In this case, Jupiter remains in the sign of Cancer from June 9th, 2025 through June 30th of next year. And again, it's exalted, it's abundant and magical in Cancer. Very good manifesting energy for listening to your intuition and having it guide you. But bear in mind that Jupiter squares Saturn a third and final time on June 15th. And we're feeling the buildup. Those are the two big planets. Jupiter's the biggest planet of the zodiac. And even though it is the grand benefic, it expands whatever it comes into contact with. And it's clashing with Saturn, at least for now. It's going to proceed to clash with Neptune. But they're forming a square, a 90-degree angle to one another. And that's an aspect of crisis. That is readjusting high expectations with Jupiter. It's Jupiter's expansion and abundance and opportunity and freedom. Saturn is restrictions and constrictions, people in authority, rules and regulations, setbacks, and this is a huge clash. The two squared one another on August 19th of last year, which was the first day of the Democratic National Convention. Then they squared one another on December 24th of last year. They were still in Gemini and Pisces at that time, mutable signs. Now we got the cardinal energy, which I just did it. I don't want you to see my nails, but it pushes ahead. Cardinal signs launch seasons. And we have Saturn and Neptune newly in the sign of Aries, close to the world point, which means big events occur. And also it hits every one of us, whether or not we're on the world stage, because each of us comprises the world. And Neptune ingressed into Aries on March 30th, the day after the last eclipse in Aries. And Saturn ingressed into Aries on May 24th. Neptune takes 165 years to orbit. Saturn takes approximately 29. The two are traveling very closely together. Saturn remains in Aries this year through September 1st, Neptune through October 22nd, and then the two meet up next year on February 20th, right at the world point, at 0 degrees of Aries and 45 minutes, the very first degree of the zodiac. Major new beginnings that we're all co-creating, but there is very Mars-driven energy, which leads me to another planet that's at play right now. Mars rules the sign of Aries in modern astrology. It rules Scorpio in ancient astrology. And the two are also building for a big clash. They met up in the sky last year on July 15th at 26 degrees of Taurus. And that was 2 days after President Trump was shot. And I'm not getting political at all. I don't want it to be political on my page. I'm just pointing out it's a very explosive and volatile energy. And that was the last time they'll meet up in our lifetime in the sign of Taurus. That did happen to square his ascendant closely. Not exactly, but we often feel Mars and Uranus before they are exact. Now they are building up to form a square on the very same day that Jupiter clashes with Saturn, which is a push and pull type of energy. It's a very crazy energy. Jupiter entered Cancer on June 9th, and then 2 days later we had a full moon in the sign that is ruled by Jupiter in modern astrology, Sagittarius, which is a really optimistic full moon, but in the backdrop you have all of this energy getting expanded. Jupiter's clashing with the planet that wants to hold it back. Jupiter in Cancer wants to be comfortable. It wants to nurture you. It wants to focus on security. Jupiter's clashing with Neptune on June 18th. That makes things seem very confusing. That makes things seem like, how do I expand to my comfort? How do I magnetize what do I want? And yet that can be very manifesting energy, because those are both the rulers of Pisces. Jupiter rules Pisces in ancient astrology, and Neptune rules Pisces in modern astrology. And so what do? Manifest and just sit there? No, absolutely not. We have choices right now, and this is a really big time in your life to go forward with your mission, whether it's your work, whether it's taking a stand politically, whether it's focusing on being happy again. Maybe you've gone through loss, maybe you've gone through a breakup, maybe your career is suffering. Saturn and Neptune are in a new sign, and they want you to initiate a new beginning. Saturn is in its fall position in Aries, but Neptune in Aries I think is kind of cool because, again, relying on the imagination, not in an escapist way where you're like, oh, it's fine, I don't have to pay attention. That's absolutely not true. You must pay attention. But also dreaming and manifesting, being creative, journaling, trying to find things that remind you to be grateful and keep yourself in that positive energy as you take the work, the steps to achieve what you want to accomplish. Saturn is achievement and it's responsibility. But right now, the energy is very, very tense. And I sidetracked, but I'm not, give me a break. It's very jittery energy. Mars is clashing with Uranus on Sunday morning at 5:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There are currently 4 points in the sign of Aries. I've already mentioned Saturn and Neptune, which are in very early degrees. They're traveling very closely together this summer. And Jupiter will square Saturn at 1 degree and, oh gosh, I got to look at my paper, 18 minutes. I did know it, but okay. At 1 degree and 18 minutes of Cancer and Aries. And Cancer and Aries. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Saturn is in its fall position in Aries. Jupiter wins in this situation, but it's also expanding the limitations at present. This is the third and final aspect. These two have clashed 3 times in the sky. Jupiter-Neptune can make things seem there can be a mass hysteria, as I've mentioned, and I think there is. But we also want to focus on the fact that not only are Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries, and Jupiter's clashing with both, This is the last time it's going to clash with both, because Jupiter is going to keep moving forward, and Saturn is going to retrograde back into Pisces on September 1st. Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces on October 22nd through January 26th of next year, but they're not going to clash again. But this is setting the tone for the Jupiter in Cancer story, which is still wanting you to be happy, wanting you to be comfortable, but you need to feel this energy to propel you. This has been 5 years post-pandemic. There's very, very big astrology this year, just as there was in 2020 when the pandemic broke out, or when it really broke out to where we were restricted. Saturn was a big part of that story. Saturn and Pluto met up at the world point, and the old world, the epic of Capricorn, as I called it, that was the end of it. That was the preview of the end of it. We are no longer in those outdated systems and ways of doing business and living. And now we're in a whole new age of Aquarius. And we have Eris and Chiron, the wounded healer, are also in the sign of Aries. And they met up recently in the sky. And Eris is the goddess of discord. And it takes 557 years to orbit. And Eris and Chiron, or Chiron and Eris, I should say, will meet up 3 times. This was the first time recently, and then they will meet up again on October 9th, and a 3rd time next year. That is bringing up a very belligerent energy of wanting to fight for good, but also wanting to fight. Eris stirs things up. She began the Trojan War. Could be also waking us up to things that we need to fight for. But remember, with Saturn and Aries, it's very easy to be impulsive. Saturn wants you to really slow down and take accountability and strategize what you're doing. And Aries, is like, no, I don't want to do that. And so Jupiter is expanding that energy, and it feels like I want to take action, but I'm being held back, and there's so many limitations. Jupiter squaring Neptune. Well, we already have Saturn saying, Saturn's the critic of the zodiac in Aries, which is the sign of self and ego. I don't measure up. I can't do this. I can't take what's going on. I can't fight for what I believe in. My career is really suffering and the world is in mayhem. What's it worth? Why should I bother? Well, you should bother, and you should use this window right now, because Saturn and Neptune will again return back into Pisces, but they're going to both retrograde in July. Neptune retrogrades on July 4th, and Neptune retrogrades on July 13th. So they're slowing down, but we still have, and they retrograde every year, and for about 40% of the year. But realistically, right now, the only planet retrograde is Pluto. We've got 4 points in Aries, which is cardinal fire, and we are seeing the fire. We are definitely seeing the fire. But as I mentioned, Mars squaring Uranus, well, Mars rules the sign of Aries. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is the ancient ruler. Saturn is in conflict with Jupiter. Mars, which rules Aries, is in and Saturn's transiting in Aries. Mars is in conflict with Uranus. That is a very explosive energy. Uranus can cause accidents and chaos and crazy weather patterns. Mars can definitely cause accidents and impulsive anger, and it can represent guns, and definitely there can be a lot of car accidents. Let's keep it easy. And there have been so far. I've seen a few. And so you want to be extra careful on the road. There are obviously huge protests going on throughout the United States this weekend, and you want to be mindful there too. People are very, very worked up, and understandably, because none of us has a clear vision of what's happening. And right now the moon is in Capricorn. It's been making some challenging aspects. It basically is doing what Mercury is doing. Mercury entered the sign of Cancer, which is cardinal water, the day before that Jupiter entered the sign of Cancer. And Mercury will remain in Cancer through June 26th, so not a long period of time, but it's giving us a preview of Jupiter in Cancer because it's already clashed with Saturn and Neptune and the other aspects it's going to make, and giving us a preview of Jupiter in Cancer. But you want to expand, you want to realize that Jupiter does love being in Cancer, and there will be more magic later in the summer, and especially next year as we get more into Pluto and Uranus in harmony, and Neptune and Saturn and Aries also in harmony with these points. That's a very positive thing. There will be a magic triangle with Pluto in Aquarius, which is indicative of the future, evolving a whole new paradigm for all of us, a whole new world, ways of connecting, ways of learning, ways of building community, alternative ways of healing and thinking. Uranus in Gemini is so brilliant and really will bring another dimension to Pluto and Aquarius, but also thinking in a more local way, in contrast to Pluto and Aquarius, which is really global future. So reminding us that we really do need to think locally. We need to nurture our local environments, our neighborhoods, our mom and pop shops, our places we hang out. We need to convene in person if we can, because that's not good for mental health. And I think more people will probably be starting, even if they work remotely, finding more hubs to work in a public way, to not keep themselves so remote. Not everybody, but I think that will happen, and I think there will be tremendous progress with travel too. But I'm getting off point. We've got a really crazy weekend, and I think I'm trying to forget that fact. Mars clashes with Uranus, 5:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Sunday the 15th. We've been feeling that build up all week. We always feel Mars before it's exact, and we always feel Uranus before it's exact. This is the last time they will clash with Uranus in Taurus in our lifetime. So that's another big deal. Uranus is just about to dip into Gemini, and it will go back into Taurus for a little while, and it enters, it'll be in Gemini from July 7th through November 6th of this year, and then it returns the last degrees of Taurus, and it returns to Gemini on April 25th of next year. And that's a good thing. It'll be there through May 22nd of 2033. Exciting energy to look forward to, bringing us new solutions, new ways of doing things. But Mars clashing with Uranus, wow. Jupiter squaring Saturn, wow. We've got the moon goes void of course. The moon is currently in Capricorn. It goes void of course tomorrow at 4:52 a.m. with a positive trine to Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, the planet of ingenuity and freedom. And so that's a positive energy, but also adding to that Uranus energy, because we know Mars is clashing with Uranus, and the moon will enter the sign of Aquarius on the 14th at 7 o'clock a.m. And the moon in Aquarius will make good aspects to Saturn and Neptune. That's helpful. But it meets up with Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth and power, on the 14th of June at 1:27 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's intense. That could be very emotional. That could be some power plays going on. That could be major endings. And then we have, let's see, the moon, when it does go void on Monday the 16th, it will go void with an opposition to Mars. Mars and Pluto are both the belligerent, aggressive planets. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. Mars is the battle, Pluto is the war. So this is also on the individual level. Maybe people are getting into fights. Maybe people are acting really wild at work. Could be a lot of crazy news stories around you. There are a lot of fires going on too. Again, 4 points in Aries, and wow. So I want to wish you a lot of luck. We got to stay grounded, manifest. I'm taking action. I know that Saturn and Neptune are in Aries for a few months. I've started doing a lot more writing again. I want to be creative and focus on my goals, even though it's a crazy world right now. And I want to be conscious of that. For you, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get into a new relationship? Are you trying to heal your relationship? Are you trying to start a new launch in your career? Are you looking for a new job or trying to go back to school? Are you speaking out about what's happening? What are you choosing to do? This is the steps we take now are building up to when Saturn and Neptune meet up next February 20th of 2026. Please stay safe, hang in there, and good luck to all of us. This is really crazy, and now we have another warlike aspect going on right now. And think of it, Saturn and Neptune are close to the world aspect in the sign that's most connected with military and with war, in the sign of Aries. And Israel just attacked Iran. So this is escalating. And the last thing too, when Mars and Uranus clash, Mars will be at the royal fixed star known as Regulus. That used to be about 28 degrees, 29 degrees of Leo. Now it's at 0 degrees of Virgo, but it's very close to 29 degrees of Leo. This also, by the way, does square Trump's ascendant and descendant. So there's a lot at play, and again, this is not political. I'm just giving facts of what's happening. So, and again, for all of us, this is the last time Mars and Uranus square one another while Uranus is in Taurus. Last summer was the last time that Mars and Uranus met up while Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. Good luck, hang in there, and wow.